Good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of ISPI, Greg Carlston and I, Nomi Baryakov, would like to welcome Israel's Foreign Minister, Gidon Sa'ar.
Thank you, Nomi.
Thank you for coming here. Gidon has been Foreign Minister since November of 2024, having come in and out of the government, having set up his own party. Then he rejoined Likud in September of 2024, and then he was appointed foreign minister, as I said, in November, in the midst of the war. He'd also held roles that may be of interest in the past. He was Minister of Justice, he was Minister of Education, and he was Minister of Interior. So he knows the internal as well as external politics very, very well, and he's been in the Knesset since 2003. We're all here, I think, on a special day, analyzing, among other things, how to implement the Sharm el-Sheikh agreements, the 20-point peace plan, and I think we're all very keen to hear from the Minister of how Israel envisages the implementation. And I think it's very clear to all of us who've been in conflict management and conflict resolution that unless the end game is crystal clear, the road leads to nowhere. So my first question to you, Minister Sa'ar, is how do you envisage the end game? How do you, to take the last point of the 20 points, how do you envisage the Palestinians' right to self-determination? What are the contours of the two states, of the 1967 borders, the base or the final borders of the state, and how do you foresee implementing issues like governance, Palestinian technocratic government, demilitarization, and Israel's withdrawal lines? Will Israel eventually withdraw from the entire Gaza Strip? So, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nomi. It is clear that not necessarily Palestinians and Israelis have the same endgame. But the success of this plan will be, and this plan reminds also this window for differences, if you read it very carefully. When you look at the past, there was also always this attempt, let's define where we want to go. Basically the same thing. Push Israel to indefensible borders, establish Palestinian state, a very short distance from its population centers. Basically what happened, the Israeli public gave it a chance. It gave it first chance in the 90s, in the Oslo agreements. I want to remind you that Israel established the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinians hadn't conquered even 1 inch of our land. It was given to them by the State of Israel that imported these terrorists from Tunisia. A decade ago, so this was the creation of the Palestinian state. The second experience took place a decade afterwards with the disengagement or the unilateral withdrawal from Gaza Strip. And Israel withdrew totally in that front of the 67 borders, dismantled all its settlements, dismantled all its communities, dismantled all the military bases, even dismantled the graves from the cemeteries. It brought peace. Not only it hadn't got us closer to peace, it deteriorated our security, because what happened is that Hamas took over very quickly, a year and a half after our withdrawal. And there are some naive people that think that if we will do the same thing in Judea and Samaria, which some of the people called the West Bank, even though Jordan denied its connection to the Judea and Samaria already in 1988. then we will get a different result. But here we are speaking about the future and security of our state. Here we cannot gamble. So I would say, first of all, the success of the plan is gradual implementation. What we implemented until now, within the first days. Ceasefire, we stopped the war. Second thing we did is a withdrawal. Certain withdrawal to the yellow line, basically according to the Trump's plan. And third, we already implemented humanitarian provisions in the agreement that increased basically to the level it was between January and March, previous ceasefire. Now the other side must implement. You are speaking about the end game. I'm not undermining this thought, but what's with ongoing reality? In reality, they committed themselves to give us the bodies of our dead hostages. They hadn't. They still have in their possession 19 dead hostages. And we know they can deliver, and they don't want to deliver, because probably they want to use it as a bargaining chip, as much as they wanted to use all the hostages as a bargaining chip. So the question is, if you don't implement the first phase of the agreement, what's the point in talking about the end game? So the secret is a strict implementation, and one thing will lead to another. And we know what our commitments, and we are ready to meet our commitments according to agreement. With regards, there was another question here, which I forgot already.
No, it was the different stages of the implementation. So there are the questions of, will Israel, one of the issues is to have a Palestinian technocratic government rule.
Well,
you know, will Israel allow for this to happen? This is what the agreement stipulates. We just heard the
We are not the problem for that. Let's speak about reality. In reality, we saw during the last day mass executions done by Hamas of Palestinians in Gaza Strip. Suddenly, Palestinian life don't matter. No one is talking about it. They have killed almost 100 people in the streets without a trial. No one is speaking about it. So what's the obstacle for a bureaucratic Palestinian, forgive me, blah, blah, blah government? The Hamas is the obstacle. And there we will reach to a challenge. We can quite easily implement certain things in the territory which is in our hands. Because right now, still we have about 50% of the Gaza Strip in our hands. But what will be with the 50% controlled by Hamas? Because Hamas today sent an announcement. I am not ready to disarm. So how you will bring about a government which will be free from Hamas, which will not be subburdened to the dictates of Hamas? These are the real questions on the ground. But I count on President Trump's decisiveness, and he said they will disarm. I don't count on Hamas, but I count on President Trump, and he already was able to do something that no one else was able to do. And even myself, when I knew what's going on, I was skeptical if it can happen. But it happened. At least the very first stage happened. And we are already in much better reality. So to put it simple, the secret is in the strict implementation. And implementation creates trust. Right now, there is zero trust between both parties. It is clear. In order to build it, we need to implement gradually.
Let me ask a very short-term question then. Donald Trump was very clear when he came to the region earlier this week that the war is over, in his opinion. He said that on Air Force One, he said that in the Knesset, he said it in Sharm el-Sheikh. Your boss, Benjamin Netanyahu, has never once said that the war is over. Is the war over? That's the first element of Trump's plan.
No one more than us want peace, security, and stability. No one more than us wants that there will be no threat for Israel from Gaza Strip. We stopped the fire. There's no fighting today in Gaza Strip. What will happen if they will do something to us? Okay, I don't know. Right now, the war is over. But we are living in a 120 years conflict. And with Gaza Strip, we have always a conflict. We had a conflict in Gaza when we were not there, in the 50s, for example, before 1967. We had problems with Gaza after 67. We had problems with Gaza when the PA controlled it. We had severe problems with Gaza when Hamas controlled it. Let's see what happened. We all agreed, it's a consensus today internationally, that the condition, first of all, is a different Palestinian governance, but without Hamas. And not only without Hamas in government, because it's not, for Hamas, it's not very important who will take care for the ruins they left beyond them. They want to be the de facto military power, because this is how you call the shot. This is how they control. This is the key issue, because Palestinians want to be free, Israel will not have security, and the region won't be stable if this terror state will continue. I want to add something which is very important to understand, because people don't understand it until the end. There is this issue, this phenomenon of terror states. It's not normal states you can deter. They are jihadists. So you see the Houthis in Yemen or Hezbollah in Lebanon. Today the government of Lebanon wants to demilitarize Hezbollah, but they still have a problem. They don't want to do it. Iran gave them different instructions. To uproot terror states is very dangerous, and you cannot live with them. I would say that for the future of the Middle East as a whole, not even only the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, uproot these terror states that happened, more during the last decades, and there was a strong push for this reality after the Arab Spring and so on. First, you need to dismantle these terror states. When you will reach that, I believe things will be open. They are not open yet. We have huge goodwill. We don't have war, which is better than when you have war. We have the hostages, the live hostages back, which is clearly a great relief and happiness for the Israeli society. But we still have Hamas controlling, with its terror tyranny, in 50% of Gaza Strip. How we overcome that? We must overcome that. And maybe another thing which is important to understand, why it was successful this time, after 2 years, to stop the war. Hamas refused. Hamas all the time wanted to use the hostages as a bargain chip to dictate the end game of the war. When we had simultaneously military pressure by our operation in Gaza City and political pressure that created by the coalition, the Arab and Muslim coalition that President Trump built, then we had the pressure from both sides. Hamas didn't have nowhere to go.
But isn't that...
So here it is important, and I acknowledge the importance of the pressure on Hamas from Arab and Muslim states in order that he will not be able to play with this very clear plan.
I mean, that sounds a bit contradictory, because you're saying Hamas is creating a reality on the ground in Gaza, but you're also saying that this combination of military and political pressure left it nowhere to go. What is Israel willing to allow now? Is there a role for the Palestinian Authority in Gaza? how much space will you give Arab states to play a role in Gaza?
That brought them to the deal. That brought them to release the life hostages without insisting on a 100% withdrawal of Israel from Gaza Strip. And it is very important to notice, because if we would withdraw 100%, there was no problem for them to continue to be in power, to continue their military power, to not disarm, not demilitarize the Gaza Strip. You still have here a leverage on the other hand. So, but when you give them like a free vacuum, they are entering. You ask about the Palestinian Authority. The Trump's plan is very clear also on that. If they will follow these demands, you can read in the 2020 Trump's plan, then you will find a really revised Palestinian Authority. You don't have today, because they are saying we are committing reforms. They're not really doing reforms. These are the relevant reforms. They can lead to trust between the people. For today, the Israeli people that supported in the past the disengagement, supported the Oslo agreements, and now don't have any trust. And without trust, you cannot build anything.
Do you think as part of trust, I mean, that there's an issue of implementation?
It's hot in Napoli, no? Also for you? Or only here?
Yeah, maybe they could
Quite
put some
hot.
air conditioning on for some of the
That's
staff.
tough.
It's absolutely boiling here, as the
I
minister
had
said.
something like a press conference there, and I said it was hot, but it's hot.
No,
also
here's
here.
like... you're a lawyer.
I forgot it already. I don't want to.
You're a lawyer, you've been a minister of justice.
When you said I was a lawyer, I am a lawyer. I was a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer anymore.
But you know the law,
Yeah.
and you know United Nations Resolution 242 and numerous other advisory opinions of the International Court of Justice. You were referring earlier to, in your words, Judea and Samaria, in mine, and all of the international communities, the west bank of the Jordan River. Did I understand? How do you view the status of that particular territory?
I will say very clearly. I will start for what you said. You reminded 242, or you can remind 338, UN Security Council resolutions. They spoke about withdrawal from territories, not the territories. They indicated we are speaking about a disputed territories, not occupied territories. Because we know that during the history, Palestinian state never existed. This is a fact. No one can deny that fact. So, and the Jordanians during the first Intifada say, we are disconnecting on what you call the West Bank, and I call Judea and Samaria. And by the way, it's against the international law to deny citizenship from people, including Palestinians. Nobody's saying a word about it because it's Jordan. But that's what happened. It's against the international law. Anyhow, we easily can claim that by withdrawing from all Sinai Desert, 90% of the territories we occupied in the Six-Day Wars, the Six-Day War, and also other territories in this bilateral context with the Palestinians, we fully implemented this resolution. But I want to tell you something as a politician.
Which resolutions
as
did
a
you
politician,
fully implement?
242. As a politician, not as a lawyer.
Sorry?
As a politician, I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, law is not solving political conflicts. Political conflicts are being solved with a political compromise. A political compromise will be needed in order to solve it. It's not necessarily what everyone is speaking about.
So I'm going back to my first question. What is the political compromise
Well,
that you envisage as the end game?
But you must acknowledge something. For you, political compromise is to push Israel to more withdrawals. This is a political compromise. Even though Israel is not controlling the Palestinian population today in the Palestinian Authority and in Gaza Strip, because Hamas and the PA controls them. But the mindset is also, you should give us something more than that. I would say, but this is of course generally speaking, that in order to find a real solution, and if you look at the map, you can see a creation of a viable Palestinian state is imaginable, that a real solution to the conflict will need to be regional conflict solution, including also other players here, like Jordan, like Egypt. But we are not about finding a solution tomorrow to the conflict. We are about the first phase. We just few hours after the ceasefire, and we want to stabilize the situation in Gaza Strip first. And we need to keep it, we need to keep the progress because it can go out of control. So it's very important for everyone to have a vision. I have my thoughts. I cannot even say all my thoughts, but I have my thoughts, how a solution can be.
Would you like to share your thoughts?
I gave you one hint already. You didn't pay attention.
No, I paid an awful lot of attention.
A regional context.
So could you elaborate?
A regional context. In negotiations, I will. But now we are not there yet. We are on the first phase. Implementation will create trust. Trust can create progress. There we are.
And do you think that in order to build trust, we also need to deal with justice? With, you know, there is, you mentioned the education, you need a reform there. What about the settlers? Are we going to see any process to deal with the burning of Palestinian houses, of the beatings, of the killings of innocent Palestinians in the West Bank?
Why don't you talk about the terror attacks against the settlers when you know that the settlers, which 99-point-something% are the most law-keeping people on earth, but they are the most exposed to terror attacks on earth. You won't find the population. You won't find the population more exposed to terror, but you're still not speaking about it. You are speaking about something which is, in comparison to the violence and terrorism against Israeli civilians in Judea and Samaria, as marginal. But everyone who is doing something against the law, everyone who is acting against property or against people, it doesn't matter if it's Palestinians or Israeli, must be punished according to the law. This is a very basic principle. But I don't like when the reality is, from the beginning, I accused them. Why I'm accusing them? Because under it, there is the hidden assumption that Jews can live in Rome, Jews can feel anti-Semitism, but they can live in Brussels, in Paris, in London. They cannot live in the cradle of the Jewish nation, in their biblical land, in Shiloh or in Hebron. There they couldn't live. I will never accept it. We will never accept it. We will not deport anyone from his home, but we will not deport also Israelis from their ancient homeland. It's our land. And by the way, I repeat again, never in history it was a Palestinian land. Let's say, what was the name Palestine? Because I don't know if everyone knows it here. Palestine is the name that Caesar Hadrian gave to the land of Israel after conquering, with the wish that the people of Israel will forget their land. And the same Caesar Hadrian destroyed the city of Jerusalem, built on the ruins of the city of Jerusalem a city he called Ilia Capitolina. But I guess that no one here remembers what is Ilia Capitolina. But everyone knows what is Jerusalem. Jerusalem belongs to us. This is our land. No one will be able to deport us from our land, and we don't have any intention to deport any resident from his home.
But you've expelled 40,000 Palestinians from their homes in the West Bank in the last few months.
No, we had an operation against terrorism. You know it perfectly well. These places were a huge terror infrastructure, a huge. If they were not, and by the way, from the time we did it, the number of terror attacks in Judea and Samaria dramatically went down. So who knows how many lives we saved by the operation there.
We're short on time. I have two questions I want to ask you about Israel's foreign relations. One is in the region. You said earlier this year...
Two I must write, because one I will remember.
We'll do one and then we'll do the next one. So we'll start with just one. You said earlier this year in April, you think normalization with Saudi Arabia will most likely become possible in Donald Trump's second term. You said that in an interview earlier this year. The Saudis have taken a very clear, very public position for more than a year now that they are not going to normalize relations with Israel unless Israel takes significant steps towards the establishment of a Palestinian state. Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi crown prince, has said that publicly. The foreign minister says that every chance he gets. This Israeli government is not going to make those steps towards Palestinian statehood. So why do you think the Saudis would discard this very public stance that they have framed as a very principled stance and normalize relations without progress towards a Palestinian state?
Look, I'm not going to give up on the chances for normalization and peace with any Arab or Muslim state. We are interested in that. We did it in the past. And I want to say another thing. Even though we have a very tough war for 2 years that influenced the Arab public opinion, none of the states that signed peace or normalization agreements with us, none of them broke relations with us. Some of them went under the radar for a while, but none of them broke relations. So, first of all, it indicates they think it's also in their interest to have normalization with Israel, as much as we have the same interest. And as much as I will not exclude any option, I will not accept any precondition. Because you spoke about declared principles. Believe it or not, we also have some principles. So we are not accepting any preconditions, and we are not putting any preconditions. And by the way, we have a lot of opportunities. We have to calm things down, that this ceasefire will be stabilized, and then we will meet the opportunities. This is my strong belief.
So do you take for granted that at some point the Saudis are going to drop their preconditions?
You want me to say things that I will never say. Why to offend someone you want to have relations with? We don't come with preconditions, and we don't accept preconditions. We are ready. Everyone is coming with his positions to discuss with any country. We believe that all the countries in the region will enjoy from cooperation. And what we saw right now, this week we saw it, that a cooperation with the same objective by the Jewish state, by Arab and Muslim states, by the international community, led to a different reality, a better reality. Let's take it from here.
I'd like to just, we need to have a short amount of time. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions on Qatar and on Iran. On Qatar, Israel trying to assassinate Khalil al-Hayya and the entire delegation, while Hamas delegation in the heart of Doha, a key mediator country, has been mediating painstakingly for the last 2 years at a time that they were discussing the Trump ceasefire. Had they survived the attack was failed. Had they not survived the attack, we may not have a ceasefire today. They were the ones that...
I'm not sure.
No, what do you think?
No, I'm not sure. I can put it the other way around.
Do you regret,
maybe,
like the Prime Minister?
Maybe it happened after the attack, after we entered to the city of Gaza. Maybe it happened also with connection to that. But it doesn't matter. And I tell you why. We decided to leave this issue behind us. It's behind us. It doesn't. I could have gave you now a long lecture about why we were right to do it according to the UN Security Council resolution that was drafted after September 11 attack. I won't do it because we left it behind us. It's
But you're
over.
of the opinion
It's
that
over.
it was a legal attack?
I could have gave you that lecture. I could have gave you that lecture. But I will send you to, because I don't want to take all the next questions, I will send you to the Security Council resolution that was drafted after 2001 September 11 attack on harboring and assisting terrorists. What is written there? It is very clear. The same laws that applies everywhere, apply to any sovereign state, apply to Israel. No double standards. I believe that Western countries, including the US, did it to terrorists. And you can say, well, they violated their sovereignty. But that's not the Security Council resolutions. But I don't want to make this argument today because we are behind it. It's over. We turn a page.
In Iran, you haven't yet turned the page. There's an oral ceasefire. President Trump declared that there's a ceasefire after 12 days of war. You know better than me his precise wording with the Prime Minister. Do you feel that you, Israel, have accomplished your goals during the 12-day war, given that you had to turn planes back? And do you foresee, the Prime Minister time and time again says that he will attack Iran. Do you foresee another attack, or do you potentially foresee a cessation of hostilities, a more organized one? In other words, one with an implementation mechanism that where there are disputes, there are third parties that can monitor those. That's on Iran, and just
let me answer that. I will not be able to remember all these questions. First of all, the ceasefire is not oral. There is a ceasefire with Iran. How do I know? When they sent missiles to Israel, there was sirens, and I don't hear sirens. And they also don't feel what they felt when we targeted objectives in Tehran and elsewhere. So there is a ceasefire. This is a fact. Secondly, no other country in a military operation achieved its goals more than Israel did in these 12 days Operation Rising Lion, with regard to the nuclear program and with regard to the ballistic missiles program. The timing was very good to finish it after 12 days. We don't intend to attack Iran now. There's no intention to do that. And it doesn't mean that in the future we will not have security challenges. I don't know what they will do in all the relevant dimensions, but we don't have any intentions to break the ceasefire. I'm saying it very clearly.
So the regime, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So the regime change that you attempted is off the cards?
The regime change, what you call a regime change, was never an objective. There was objectives. There was 5 objectives of the operation in the Security Cabinet decision. None of them was regime change.
You tried to kill the president.
Just a minute. Don't interrupt, please. And I want to tell you another thing, also for you. You cannot change a regime from the air. We are quite experienced with that. So we can continue with the war, but we hadn't got this objective, which was never our objective. A regime change is not our objective. It's the objective of the people in Iran. They are able to do that. We are not able to do that.
The light is blinking, but one final quick question. You mentioned turning the page. I don't think much of the world wants to turn the page quite yet in terms of its relations with Israel. You look at the vast majorities of people in Western countries who...
it was...
Now you're
my impression, well, just saying that some of the left-wingers in Europe, I feel disappointed. We had a ceasefire. They would like to have the war continued.
You gave an interview to Mishpacha magazine recently, and you were asked about Israel's international isolation, and you said Israel is not isolated.
Yeah,
we
Israel
just
is
had
not-
our second visit from Marco Rubio, and Fiji just moved its embassy to Jerusalem. Marco
good.
Rubio came because Israel bombed Qatar, and there was a lot to talk about with the Israelis. And Fiji, with all my respect to Fiji, is not exactly a diplomatic powerhouse.
Do you follow?
That sounds
I
like...
will give you a couple of proofs. I must. First of all, I was invited here, so I'm not isolated. I was invited by a serious government, by the Italian government. I just met the foreign minister of Croatia. Next week, I'm going to host the Albanian foreign minister in Israel. I'm going to host the Czech Republic foreign minister. We are going to host the foreign minister of Singapore. We are going to host the foreign minister of Austria. Do you think that this is the perception of isolation? There are things that we acknowledge the fact that our position is a minority position in the international community. This is an accurate description, but with things which are connected to our future and security, we will never take the majority in the international community and implement its will upon us. We will act according to our interests like any other country, but we are clearly not isolated. I can assure you that. I have a problem now. How to manage all the invitations I'm getting, because I have a lot of invitations, and I told my staff, I have a wife and kids. You cannot do that to me because you will create problem. That was in the last staff meeting we made. So we are not isolated.
We could keep going, but I think they're going to drag us
No,
off the
they're
stage
asking
at
us to
some
wrap up.
point. So, Gidon Sar, Foreign Minister
Thank
of
you.
the State of Israel, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you.